Hey everyone, so for today's video I'm going to be taking a look at the new bounty hunting system in Star Citizen 3.12 to see what changes CIG made to it, since it seems to be a pretty big overhaul. However, for some reasons I'm going to get into in this video, I haven't been able to dive into everything in as much detail as I would like to, but I've got enough info to give you a pretty good idea of how things are now. Before I get to that though, I do want to talk about the general state of 3.12. So 3.12 does have a lot of exciting new content, including these bounty missions, but unfortunately a lot of these positive changes are being overshadowed by some really annoying issues and some poor decisions. I do think that they rushed to get this out of the PTU a bit too soon, because just off of the top of my head some issues are, there's a lot more 30Ks in this patch, frame rates, especially when in cities, seem to be significantly lower, people are having issues selling commodities from the refinery, and you can't sell any of the presents that you pick up for the event either. The canopy bug is back with a vengeance, and specifically relating to these missions, the targets take forever to spawn in, and when they finally do, they don't really do that much in the way of fighting back. And then in terms of the support craft that are supposed to spawn with them, I've only seen them spawn in a couple of times. So yeah, I really hope that they get some of this stuff worked out, because the game's in quite a bad state right now. Now back to the bounty hunting, I want to just start off by summarizing how the new system works. So in the old system, whenever there was a new patch, your reputation would be reset, and you'd have to do one trial mission for each location that offered bounties. So you'd have separate ones for Hurston and Crusader. Once you completed these missions, you'd then have access to all of the difficulties of missions available in that area, as long as there was one available. These were split up based on the crime stat of the NPC target, and the higher the crime stat, the higher the difficulty the mission would be. The other option was player bounties, and there was a separate mission to get access to these. You just have to take out one easy NPC target, and then you have access to all of the player bounties on the server. Now though, to get this player bounty certification, you actually have to take out a player, and there's even a fee you have to pay to accept the contract. You still get paid if you do successfully take out the player, but it's just a lot harder to get the certification now since you actually have to take out a real player rather than an NPC. And then I believe there's also a separate certification for taking out escapees, which is very similar to the just general player bounty certification. So it's a good thing that these certifications will be persistent now, because it's actually going to be a bit more of a challenge to get them. So then as for the NPC bounties, instead of just having one certification level, there are now multiple levels which become available as you complete missions. They've also changed the naming scheme on these from just telling you what crime stat the target is, to calling them very low risk target, low risk target, medium risk target, high risk target, and very high risk target. So to unlock each of these 5 levels, you have to complete a certification mission, and you actually have to pay to do these certification missions, and I'm pretty sure there's no reward for completing them. However, the rewards for the actual missions once you've unlocked them are pretty good, which is definitely a move in the right direction, especially if they're going to move forward with more changes to make losing your ship and stuff like that have more consequences. On a side note about that, I am all for those changes to make your decisions matter a bit more to be implemented at some point, but the game is definitely not ready for them now. This recent change to make expedite fees much higher and claim times much longer I think is one of the most boneheaded decisions CIG has made in a while. I know they've backed it down just recently by decreasing a lot of them by half now, but this still puts a lot of the values at higher than what they were in 3.11. This really is an insult to the players who do try to have the patience to sit through playing this game in its current state, because there's literally no justification for making this change now. They obviously can't work on balance right now, with so many game systems missing, and it's not even like it's a new system that they have to test. The prison system is annoying, even to players like me who are usually lawful, but that's an example of something that they had to put into the game because it's a new system and they wanted to start fixing some of the bugs that are related to it. With this claim time change though, they literally just changed some values in order to waste players' time and money. And this patch so far has been a lot less stable than 3.11 was. I'm usually pretty patient with the game, but these issues really combine to make it a lot less fun to play in this patch. And I think CIG should really be doing everything that they can, when possible, to make the game fun to play, because we all know it can get quite frustrating. Okay, so back to bounty hunting again, you get some pretty good rewards for completing these missions once you unlock the higher tier ones. So you should be seeing these rewards in the contract listings throughout the video, but the best ones that I was able to get consistently to show up were the high risk target ones, which pay around 11,000 alpha UEC, and you start to get paid a little bit more on top of that as your reputation goes up. So something from like a few hundred credits more to a bit more than 1,000 extra credits. So right now you can't actually monitor your reputation. The only way to really look at it is by looking at a few entries in your journal that you get as you complete the certifications, but it's not really that big of a deal yet because it's pretty obvious based on the contracts that you have available to you what your reputation is. And they've said that they'll be working on a system for you to actually be able to see it in the future. In terms of how long it takes to progress between the different levels of difficulty, I'd say you have to complete about 5 to 6 missions on each level to unlock the certification mission for the next one, except for the certification for very high risk targets, which took me a lot longer to get. And I'm not even sure that my rep is quite high enough to start getting those missions because I never did see another very high risk target mission pop up after completing the certification. But they supposedly pay around 17,000 credits. So I would have liked to test out those missions to see what sort of targets you face for those, but whether it's a glitch stopping those missions from showing up in the available contracts, or just that I have to get my rep up even higher, I wasn't really able to do any of those. So now I want to talk about some of the issues with these missions right now. Like I mentioned earlier, the targets that you have to go take out for these missions take forever to spawn in, and don't really behave like they should once they do. To demonstrate this, I'm just going to play this clip without fast forwarding or anything, and keep in mind as well, this is one of the faster loading ones that I found. There were times when I just stopped recording in between, but like 5 minutes later, the guy finally loaded in. And even when the target finally does load in, it takes another eternity for what was supposed to be a support craft to load in, and I usually just ended up not waiting for that. So I would have liked to give you a full picture of what the target would be, and then what sort of supporting craft they would be bringing along with them. But I was already waiting around 5 minutes for each mission just to get the actual target to spawn in, and then it would have been an additional 5 minutes on top of that to get the supporting craft to spawn. But just so you have a bit of an idea, I did wait around for one high risk target, and I got this assortment of craft. So none of them are that big of a threat. I think the most combat capable ship of these was a Gladius, and there were 4 additional ones, so I'd assume that with the medium risk targets this would be down to 3, with the low risk targets this might be 2, and the very low risk targets they might have 1 additional craft with them. But like I said, I didn't actually get to test this out too much, just because of how long everything took, so it could be a little bit different. So these issues do have the side effect of making these missions really easy for the moment, since it ends up being a single craft that doesn't really fight back no matter the difficulty level, but it makes for really boring gameplay since you spend most of your time quantum traveling between missions and then waiting for the target to show up. So I plan on making a follow-up video to go over the difficulty levels for these missions in more detail once they fix it so the NPCs are performing a little bit better and the support ships are actually there, but for now these missions are mind-numbingly boring and easy. One thing you do have to be careful of though right now is situations where the target is between you and an asteroid, or at least the marker for where they're supposedly going to spawn is, because the NPC targets will just ram full speed into them if they do have an asteroid in between you and them. So yeah, if you do see a situation where there's a potential for that, you're going to want to maneuver away so that hopefully they don't ram into anything, because if they do die from ramming into the rock, you won't get credit for the mission and will actually lose rep, which is really annoying, and you don't want that to happen after waiting like 5 minutes for the target to show up. So that's going to be all really for this video. I wish I could have been a bit more positive, but I would be lying if I said that 3.12 is a good experience right now. With that said, these missions do pay out a lot more than before and are still quite profitable even in their current state. I do really hope that they get some of the issues with 3.12 fixed though, because these changes would be pretty great if they were working how they were supposed to. Let me know how you guys' experience has been though, because I know it can vary a lot from person to person, but from what I've seen on like Spectrum and Reddit, it hasn't been great for a lot of people. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.